Hi, I have a very special guest. This is Amir Anzur. I have Liesbeth who is the author of Storytelling for Executives, and she's been coaching and working in the executive world for a few decades. She lives in Belgium, and I want to learn about her new book, Storytelling for Executives, why you wrote it, what it's about, and how you can help executives. What's the power of their story?
Okay, thank you for having me in your interview, Amir. I always loved stories since I was a little child. I couldn't stop reading, so I was passionate about stories. And later on in life, I developed another passion, and that is continuously improving, continuously growing myself. And by coincidence, I got a focus on executives due to certain experiences. Voila.
So what is storytelling for executives?
So storytelling can happen for anyone, eh? But I think you need to make a choice, or you just make a choice. And executives have their own stories going on inside their minds, but also they are perceived in a certain way by their peers, by their colleagues. And in a lot of cases, there are challenging situations in a company where things could go much better. And I think it works in both directions. You can focus on the team, but you can also look at the executives because they set the example first. But as I said, it's a responsibility of everyone. But I chose to focus on the captains of the ship. Voila.
So, like, what are some examples of storytelling that executives have going on in their head?
So, for example, you have a certain situation in a company where you have a leader and you have a team. And if a leader always behaves in the same way in the team, it's gonna create a narrative. People gonna, or the team is gonna think this leader is this way. It could create tensions in the team. Suppose it's not the best story, what's been told there. It could create tensions in a team. Now, if you take the time to sit together with the team and to make things aware to the leader, then maybe there could be a shift and the whole team could bloom or flourish, could do much better because the story need to see the light, need to, there is some awareness that need to be in the story so that things can go better. Because sometimes you don't know what is going on. It can be a situation where you don't do things intentionally, but it's good to speak about stories that are going on. Voila.
Okay, so like an executive might have a story in their head that they must be seen as an authoritarian leader, or they can't show any weakness. Is that an example of a story
That's
that
a very good example because this can create really a lot of problems. If it's in a culture of a company where there is more a need for openness, in some companies it could work well. It really depends on the culture of the company, the country. It depends on a lot of factors, but that could be a problem if it's not the right style in or the right story in that company.
And so, do you think executives in different cultures and different countries have different types of stories within them?
Absolutely, because it all has to do also with values, the way we see things, the way we have been trained, the way our education was. Of course, there are so many stories in all these countries. Of course.
And do you think that everyone should be aware of the stories they tell themselves? I mean, what are some examples of people that are telling themselves, like, is it like I'm a loser, I can't make money, I can't get a promotion? Those are some
Well,
disempowering stories.
that's a very good remark, Amir. I think not everyone needs to be aware of it, honestly. It all depends if there is a need in the company and if there are consequences for the company and the team. I can perfectly imagine that there is somewhere in a country far away from here a leader who is doing his thing and everything happens like it should be in the company and nobody says a thing about it, because it could be like a culture where everyone has to not everyone has to be silent about the treatment. But in other companies, like for example in Belgium, it would be a good idea to release the tension of teams to speak about what's going on. It really depends. It's not really necessary. It really depends on the situation again.
And then how do you go and help these executives? You've written a book on it, but how do you go out and help corporates?
Well, I do listen to the story that is being told by the team and by the leader, because sometimes these stories could also be totally opposite. So it starts all by listening, and then by using your intuition. I use a lot my intuition, using your intuition, what is not being said, because it's also very important to listen what's not being said. And then, of course, if there is a need for a better situation, it's a matter of bridging the two stories and find something that helps in both directions.
Amazing. So you work with executives of all sorts to help them with writing it out, figuring it
Exactly.
out, and changing their story.
Exactly.
Great. And what do you think about the culture of working in Belgium as opposed to, let's say, the United States or in Europe compared to the US? I mean, the US is a lot more business driven and sort of
Exactly.
sales driven country, would you say, than, let's say, Central Europe,
I
Western
think
Europe?
every culture, maybe that's a diplomatic answer, but I love a lot of cultures and I love the US culture. I love the Belgian culture. I am married to an American man. So I am passionate about other cultures. I think every culture has its benefits and things that could be improved. But you have to be adaptive and there is something beautiful in every culture and something you need to work on in every culture. That is what all cultures have in common, I think. All have their beauty, all have their things to work on.
Okay, and if you had to give tips for the listeners to work on their story to improve it, how could they do that?
Well, they should take like some time aside and reflect on what they are telling to themselves, what other people are telling to them, because you get a lot of insights from your environment. You also can connect to yourself, take time for it while meditating or while practicing sport. Listen to yourself and try to bring awareness into your life. And also, like listening to podcasts is a fantastic example how you can bring more awareness into your story, because you could recognize things from what other people are saying while you might have been blind so far. But when you hear it from a specific case from somebody else on a podcast, you can start to make a reflection and say, I recognize that. Oh, maybe I didn't see this or I didn't know that. And now that I hear this story from somebody else, I get more awareness and maybe I should work on this or that.
Amazing. Awesome. Thank you, Liesbeth, for coming on the podcast and sharing about your book, which is available on Amazon and big stores. Basically, Liesbeth Leeson, Storytelling for Executives. And how can people connect with you or
Oh, they
follow you?
can connect with me on LinkedIn. I'm very active on LinkedIn. I adore LinkedIn. It's my pool also to learn continuously and to get in touch with the whole world globally. So I would say get in touch with me on LinkedIn. There is also a link to my website. You can contact me also via WhatsApp. There are plenty of opportunities to knock on my door.
Perfect. Thank you, Liesbeth, for your time.
And thank you so much for having me in your interview.
Thank you.